Welcome to the Expert Talks Executive Corner by Kalkine TV. I'm Sage and today's guest is Mr. John Pastor, the General Manager of 24 Hours in Sydney. And today's adventure specialist will share insights from the tourism sector. And 24 Hours in Sydney have a very inspiring motto, you gotta love Sydney. And they can give you plenty of reasons to do so with their unique walks and tour offerings. So where the guide actually becomes your best friend. And bringing you live today on the show, we have Mr. John Pastor, the General Manager of 24 Hours in Sydney. Welcome to the show, John.
Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm well, thank you. And thanks for fitting us in your busy schedule.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just love Sydney.
Yes, and I can feel your passion through the screen already. Well, it's a great day to connect with you because the government's announced they're going to have a stay and rediscover $50 voucher for everyone to spend on tourism and aviation.
Yeah, it's an extension of the Dine and Discover card. It's something that we've embraced as 24 Hours in Sydney. You can use it on 10 different offerings of what we've got for tours in Sydney. We cover small bars, we cover the Rock, we cover Manly, all the great places of Sydney that people, locals, who've been living here for over 30 years or more, we find them places that they don't realise we actually exist.
Fantastic. Well, look, John, let's make the most of our time together today. Your business sounds like a very exciting venture. Do you mind telling us the ins and outs? When did you start operating and what was the inspiration behind the brand, please?
Well, funnily enough, it goes back a long time for what I know about Sydney. I was a sales manager and I was giving people great exposés of Sydney in the 1980s. Because they sort of said, John, you know Sydney better than anybody else. And then about 10 years ago, I was approached to run some experiences in Sydney. And then 4 years ago, I bought a business called Sydney Urban Adventures, which is now transformed into 24 Hours in Sydney. And the beauty of 24 Hours in Sydney is that it is a highly sought after search term on Google. And we fortunately now have a website called 24 Hours in Sydney.
Fantastic. Well, sounds like you're onto a good thing there. And it's not been an easy time for anyone over the last 18 months, especially those in tourism, hospitality, aviation, entertainment and the arts. How did you survive the downturn and what's the strategy moving forward?
The toughest thing for us was that we needed to stay in business. And the only way we could do that was to cut back and cut back to the bare bones. So what we created was a website, and we've been populating that website, renaming tours, giving people a chance to actually get to experience Sydney from a totally different perspective. We love to help corporates with their team building, team bonding, and what we discovered is that when people were walking with us, they were doing the talking amongst themselves. So it's a great opportunity to build rapport with your own team as well as potential customers.
Oh, great. So you do corporate team building as well as tourists and locals who just want to find out a bit more. Is that correct? Oh,
absolutely. The chances are is that a lot of people think they know Sydney, but we've got a place in George Street North, actually, because at one stage from the late 1860s, 1870s, Sydney was being paved with wood blocks. And they were finally removed just before the Great Depression. And with the road being paved in wood blocks, there's a section of the road in George Street North that's still paved in wood blocks. 30,000 people walk past that section every day and they don't even realise it's part of our colourful history. And I mean colourful, because we're a fabulous country. And Sydney is the greatest city in the world.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I believe I saw on your website that you're accepting bookings right now. What are the regulations regarding vaccination requirements for these outdoor walks, please? And do you have any specials that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, the concept of our COVID-19 we follow the government regulations. So at the present moment, we're requiring people to be double vaccinated because as we visit different venues, they're expecting the patrons to be double vaccinated. So we're doing the same thing. So we've got our own Service New South Wales app that you scan and you register and you come in and bingo, you're in the system. Unfortunately, our app does not allow you to get a blanket entry into venues. You'll need to enter each time you go in and out of the venue. Now, some of the specials that we have is that we've formed a partnership with a travel partner who is able to offer people who are just thinking of coming to Sydney. All they need to do is to contact us via email or on our social media pages to say, hey, how can we take advantage of your 4-day, 3-night stay complimentary from 24 hours in Sydney?
Great.
We are desperate to get people back into the city. Each time New South Wales has relaxed their laws as far as the COVID-19 is concerned, what we created is that people would go into the regional areas and not into the city. We desperately want people back in the city. We want people back in the offices. We want people back in all of the small businesses that thrive on serving all of those people in the city itself. And finally, with that new laws, 70% tax rate, yes, 80% tax rate, and soon to be 90% tax rate, we're accepting visitors again from overseas, which is just fabulous news for our industry.
Well, yes, the seagulls and the ibises are getting a bit lonely. So we do need some people in the city.
Yeah, well, the seagulls are one thing, but the ibises are actually called bin chickens.
Very true. Yep. So you've got your walks starting up pretty soon. Are they operational at the moment? And I think you mentioned a special offer where children can come along for free. When does that start?
Well, that's been part of our feature on all of our tours that are not 18 and over restrictions. So how it works is that for every adult that pays to be on one of our tours, they can bring one of their children for free. We're not a babysitting service. What we are, however, is that we are offering these incentives to get kids to get to know about Sydney. We just love it so much. We want to share it with as many people as we possibly can.
Well, I had a quick look over your website and I was blown away. There's just so much information there and stuff I didn't know. It's very exciting. So hopefully people will check it out, 24hoursinsydney.com.au and come along to one of those walks. So, John, how do you source these amazing locations? Do you do all the sleuthing yourself? As I mentioned, your website is very interesting. It's got a lot of hidden, iconic Australiana there. Could you tell us a bit about how you do source these wonderful locations?
One of the key factors is that the people who work with us, we've got one guy who traces his ancestry all the way back to the second fleet, another one who traces his ancestry back to the first fleet. I myself was a first generation Australian, born after the Second World War, and my parents came here as part of the Displaced Persons Act to populate Australia. And how lucky was I that they desperately wanted to have transportation to the US of A, and thankfully they came to Sydney.
The Emerald City.
I've grown up in Sydney, and I have done all the crazy things that a Sydney boy would do as a teenager. One of our experiences covers the Rocks area, where in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, it was probably one of the most dangerous areas to visit in Sydney. Today it's a very effective centre, but we take people into one of the bars where Mr. Sin, Abe Kalkine, used to have a photographer to take compromising pictures of key influential politicians, lawyers and policemen so he could gain certain favours if anything ever went wrong with his estate.
Well, yes, that would definitely act as good collateral. And you offer corporate packages, and we've touched on a little bit, as well as walks for tourists and locals who want to discover more about the beautiful Emerald City. What sets 24 Hours in Sydney's offerings apart from the other walking tours and businesses around?
Well, we actually came up during the COVID lockdown. We did a lot of thinking. We discovered that when we take bookings from online travel agents, we would have to have inclusions of a BSA for $10, and the customer would need to pay $16 for that. So we've excluded inclusions from all of our tour offerings because we'd like to save money for our clientele. The second aspect that we did is that a lot of other of our competitors, when they charge you a per person rate. We book you into groups, and the bigger the group, the cheaper the per person rate becomes. So you might find that one of our competitors will be charging $60 or $70 per person. Our tours can come down to as little as $31 per person, depending on how many people book into the tour. We've even created a Facebook page so that people can put up and say to each other and say, look, I'm thinking of coming to Sydney on the 25th of February. I'm thinking of doing the Rock Thunderbox tour. Would you like to join us so we can all save money? And that's all available on our website and also on our Facebook groups.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for your information and making time for the show today. We have to start wrapping up. Was there anything you'd like to share with the viewers before we close the discussion?
Well, the only thing that I can sort of say to you is that Sydney has the most fabulous waterway, and I had a person who came, an employee, if I'm allowed to mention, a Google employee. Google has an office down in Ultimo Glebe, and he said to me, how do I get to it? And I said, where are you staying? And he said, near Circular Quay. I said, well, why don't you just go to Sydney? We have the most fabulous transport system here in Australia. And when I was growing up, we had to tender the correct fare, but now we have an Opal card that makes it very, very easy for people to travel around Sydney, and they can actually use Google for their commentators. And the final thing I want to sort of say is that when you come and you have an experience with us, you end up with a friend in Sydney that can help you at any time in the future. And if you've got other friends who want to come to Sydney, you can refer them directly to us, and we will take care of them as you say we're all welcome.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your adventure and passion, for the adventures that you put on. Really do appreciate your time today, and best of luck moving forward as Sydney reopens.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Sage. Thank you, Kalkine.
Thanks, John. And if you've just joined us, we just had a very interesting discussion. Mr. John Pastor, the General Manager of 24 Hours in Sydney. Please do check out the full interview at YouTube on Kalkine Media's channel. And as we say, stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine.